Hey Marty, okay, so here's your past life spread. So, what we're going to do is look at where you are, what you do with the majority of your time, an important day with the relationships and feelings involved, another important day with relationships and feelings, the death and lesson learned. We'll get hints of time throughout. So all I'm going to do is relay to you the images and impressions that are coming through, and your job is to make connections where you can based off what we get here in your current life, and I'll try to help however I can. So where we want to start off, by the way, so it feels like we're looking at a male life, and even as I was shuffling, it was feeling like we were going to be drawn towards the Middle East. And this also feels like we're looking at the 20th century, but in the it's not even like, I want to say it was early 20th century. Whenever it's almost like a breakout in commerce, or okay, you know how we have like military agencies that we're not even aware of, like a kind of like underground kind of thing. It feels like that's what we're going to here, but for technology. So it feels like you're part of a unit that works with whatever the up and coming technology is of the time, but it's not out in the public yet, is what it feels like. And so it feels, and also what's coming through are like the feeling of patriotism for the country and how far they're progressing. And then also the ideal, like the idea of the technology coming out and being reached by million, like being able to be used and being like so loved, so to speak. So there's like a couple of concepts when it feels like being free, like far-ranging, far-reaching, and then also the kind of intimacy of patriotism for your specific land, for your region. So these are themes coming through, so make connections with these themes however you can, as far as the feeling of wanting it's kind of like the idea of your private living, or like your country or your family, whatever you are most prideful about, having a reputation that is far reaching or far exceeding what is, I guess, like far reaching in the sense of like, oh, your family or your region, whatever it is, the thing that you work for. It could be in these day and age, it could be your career, like your business, your organization, someone you work for, that being far-reaching and a good reputation. So that might be very important to you, is to work for people that have a good reputation. To integrity might be a very important theme in your life, to make sure you work for people who have high integrity, whose word you can trust. Maybe the honor system is very important to you still, or the loss of the honor system is tragic to you, like, oh, I remember the days when you could trust someone, or oh, I wish we lived back in the times when you could just trust someone's word, that kind of thing. If that's a connection, great. If not, that's fine. But where we're going first, by the way, is Africa. So that Middle Eastern pull is still there, and Africa, if we're being pulled all the way up to the corner there, that would include the Middle East in this card. So I'm going there just because the visions are so vivid this time around. They're showing me a male. They're showing me like that you're dressed in what they would have determined to be like very fine garb, and I feel like there is a traditional aspect to how you dress, even though what you're working on is very modern for the times. So there's something about having quality attire. And so this kind of connection could be a couple things. For example, one, in this life, you might enjoy finer quality items, finer quality textures, materials for your clothing. You might be very particular about the kinds of shirts you like, or the kind of material that you wear. You might be very sensitive to other material, even to the, like where something's really scratchy on you that might not be scratchy on someone else, that kind of thing. So that could be a connection. On the other hand, because this person felt like they had to dress a certain way, it's almost like a uniform. So again, that could be a connection where it's like you feel comfortable in the uniform, you feel comfortable in wearing something continuously or consistently to either show your status or show your job or occupation, or just might be what's comfortable for you. You might be in the same jeans every weekend, or like whatever it is. And then on the other hand, it could mean as well like that you want to be completely like comfortable with what you wear. Just because this person consistently wore a certain uniform, it can come back a different way, like the opposite connection, where it's like, well, because they wore a uniform in your current life, you might be someone that doesn't want to wear or use a uniform, if that makes sense. So just make connections with that, but the clothing option thing is coming up for a reason, so there's that. Middle East itself, if you've been drawn to the Middle East, if you've ever seen photos or been triggered emotionally by hearing about the culture, the land, the history, the food, there's so much about the Middle East. If you've ever looked at it and seen the beauty of it. Otherwise, if you don't connect in that way, this would be coming up for you as like just a little message to look at, to try to find beauty in things that you might not normally think of as beautiful, or to something about giving second chances, or like almost like whatever notions you have of a place or a situation, make sure you're revisiting your belief system on that to make sure that you can't make adjustments in ways that would kind of alleviate burdens in your mind, or alleviate certain burdensome thoughts, or whatever it is. Just make sure you're touching base with your growth, like understanding we're all human and we're all growing over time. Doesn't matter how old you are, you can always make changes. So just make sure you're touching base with yourself to make necessary changes that may help again with your growth. So keep that in mind. Now, what you do with the majority of your time here, this card is the hunter and provider card, and it feels like you're doing your job. It's funny because like here, it's like you see the little hunting thing. It's like usually we're talking about like ancient times when you're like hunting for the tribe or whatever it is. But in this sense, literally, it feels like you are taking care of a family. So it just feels like you are doing your job, and your job it's actually quite lucrative. It feels like you have a very high paying, very secure job. But there is something very anonymous about the job that I want to mention, as far as like something about working in groups and working, like putting your head together with other people. But this brings in the income. So I feel like we're going to get to that here somewhere, but so in your current life, if you feel like you've been born like to grow up in the traditional sense of, oh, I need to get a job and make money to provide for my family, that would be a connection. And of course, that's very broad. Everyone, there's lots of people that do that. On the other hand, you might have chosen to come back into this life to experience something different, where your work gives you more leniency, or you might have made certain choices in your life to make sure that you have certain freedoms or independences, so to speak, when it comes to taking time off, or giving, having family time or vacation time or you time. So it can be that as well. And it could be that you chose in this life not to have a family at all to provide for, because you wanted to go solo, because in this lifetime, that's all you're doing is you're working to provide a really nice income and lifestyle for your family. There is risk-taking involved too. I feel like because of how secretive this work is, that might translate into your current life, the secretiveness. You might be someone that likes to keep secrets, or you might be someone that's very good at keeping secrets for others. You might be the person people come to tell their secrets to, or they just like unload a lot of like personal stuff on you. And if you have that kind of energy about you, that would make a lot of sense. There's something about secret keeping here. So keep that in mind. And we're going to go to the first important day. So the first important day here is the Wowzer card, which is one of my favorites. This is when something big happens, like there's a leveling up in your soul, or you even like experience something in your daily life that is unlike anything you've experienced. And so here is the soul group. And this feeling card is neutral. And I feel like what we're seeing on this day is anything but neutral. And that's why I feel like this card is here, because it's almost like redundant to have a neutral card for what's happening here. It feels like on this day, there's a breakthrough in your work. And it feels like almost like you might have made that breakthrough, but at the very, at the very least, it's your group, the people you're working with. You work in close proximity. Like, I feel like there's a lot of little groups working all at the same time on their own little projects. And it feels like, so let's say there's like 4 of you, maybe 5, like just a very small group. And it feels like there's a big, great a big breakthrough that comes on this day, and it's kind of like, it's the kind of achievement that's mind-blowing because you didn't expect to make it, where it's like you've been working towards it for so long, but then it was almost like on the whim of one decision to try something new, you blew ahead in the field. Like something is like you created something new in the field. So in your current life, you might be very innovative. You might feel like, oh, I should be contributing. I should make something. I should be inventing something. What is, like, even if it's like a random fun thought that you might have every now and then of, oh, if I can invent anything, what would I invent? And you actually give some moments or some time to thinking of some ideas. This would just be a message that, well, yeah, it'd be a connection to this, but it's also a message that you are very creative and innovative. Whether you know it or not, there's a lot of creativity in there, and it's almost like a little nudge to tap into some of your more creative aspects. And it's something that might come across your radar that might intrigue you, but you never thought about actually doing it. This would be a message to just go ahead and try it, like whether it's like sculpture class or a dance class or whatever, something you might not have done before or might not have, done like back in another phase in your life. Now it's like time to just try something new and try something creative too. And there's a lot of things that are creative that you don't even think are creative. So just open your mind and stay open-minded to that. But basically, I feel like this is coming through as the overall message of, hey, pick a hobby or pick a new hobby or dedicate some time to a hobby or focus on a hobby. It just feels like focus on something creative. And I feel like that will be very helpful for you in many different ways. It can be in problem solving or in learning to get closure or peace of mind, whatever it may be. Funneling your focus towards a creative hobby, I feel like would be a really good idea for you. So if you even have something in mind, if something is coming to mind to you right now, that's probably the thing you should be just trying out. This also can speak to how you work in groups. You might be someone that works really well in groups, knows how to like complete your tasks that you're assigned. You also might be very good at management too, where it comes to staying on top of people for their tasks that they've been assigned, so to speak. So it just feels like group work might be very good for you. And on the flip side, if you hate group work, if you just don't like it, never have, it would be because what happened on this day is interesting, is that the group went ahead and found, had this great achievement, but at the same time, there wasn't, at least what it feels like, is that there wasn't enough solo credit given to you or each person, or basically it was a group effort, and that's great, but there's this little trickling feeling of not getting credit where it's due. So if you ever have something in your life where you feel like you never get credit, you aren't recognized for what you've done, you wish you had a certain reputation that maybe you haven't fulfilled, something like that, that would be coming through as a connection, but also a message to let it go. Like, is it like in a way where it's like, look at it and see, is it really that important to you? Is it worth the angst or the icky feelings you might have when it comes to realizing I didn't get credit for that, or I didn't get my pay for that, like whatever I was worth, I feel like I didn't get as much reputation or as much recognition. And it's like, if you're holding on to anything like that from either a long time ago, or even if it's just happening, just make sure you're weighing and really processing, is it important enough for you to stress out about when you can't do anything about that kind of thing, or can you try letting it go so you can just move forward? Because otherwise you're just going to stress and worry and feel like crap for no reason if you are holding on to any grudges like that. And you're filling up your space with icky feelings when you could just be letting go of that and clearing it out for some better positive quality feelings, all right? So keep making connections where you can when it comes to that. And if you do have a buddy in your lifetime that has stuck by you and you can work with really easily, and you've remained friends all this time, or you just met someone where you feel like you're really good friends and you work well together on the same page, they could come from this group, because this is the soul group. So you're going to be seeing these guys, people in your life from time to time, not necessarily always, male or female. Everyone, we come back differently. So let's go to the next important day. Now, the next important day here, we see the so long, farewell, until we meet again card. And this usually indicates somebody is leaving or you're watching someone go. And the relationship is the soulmate card. And the soulmate card is not always romantic, but it can be. And then the feelings here is like kind of melancholy or lonely kind of thing. So I'm just trying to see what we're getting, what's coming through here. So what it feels like here is that there's like a change up in your department, and it feels like there's separation between certain people. So it feels like not all, this whole group, they didn't split up the whole group, but they split up most of the group, because what they did was they realized that each person in this group is so valuable that they want each person, it feels like either each person or you go off in pairs, but it's split up because they want you teaching. Like they want you teaching kind of like your patterning of your mind, because it's like they realize this group all works so well, their minds all work, they function so strategically, and but also creatively. There's this nice balance between the left and right side of the brain, which you might have in this current life if you feel balanced between creativity and analytical things. That make a lot of sense, but they're basically splitting you up, and you begin teaching. And it's kind of, I want to say overall the feeling, even though this is melancholy-ish, it feels more frustrating. And that's where this feeling comes in, because you realize that you really don't have a lot of say in like which department you're in. Even though you're highly respected and you're known, it's like you still have a ladder to climb. So there's many above you still, and this is the way up, and you know it. However, it's not fun anymore, because now you're teaching and you want to be doing. And it feels like you eventually do things, and you do gain reputation over the years, is what it feels like, to where you do get to a lovely position. But this feeling here of being changed up kind of against your choosing, there's a helplessness to it. So in your current life, you might have some kind of control issue when it comes to what you're doing, or the chain of command or whatever. Is like you might be someone that really needs to know the chain of command, just for your own kind of security blanket, kind of peace of mind for you, at least if not now, then at some point. But also the idea of doing versus teaching. Make sure that you're not putting yourself in a position that isn't as fun as it can be for you, whether it's for the idea of like, oh well, I've done my time there and I guess I ought to move on. You don't have to do that. Like, I guess there's this thing coming up about age, and there's this little message of like, don't be fooled by your age. Don't be fooled by what society labels as like appropriate for whatever age, because it feels like you're still supposed to be having fun. So make sure you are having fun with what you're doing. Like if you are getting into a new hobby or whatever it is, make sure it's because it excites you, it's fun for you, and make sure you're not, basically, for lack of better terms, putting yourself out to pasture, if that makes sense. Because sometimes we feel like, oh, by this age I have to do this, or by this age I have to be here, and it's like that's not the case. So just make sure you're really listening to yourself and not being like herded along, to a new position that you're not ready to do. At the same time, this is coming through that you're a very apt teacher. So if you do choose to be teaching something that that would be, I could see that as being like very successful too, because there is creativity in teaching, because you have to find ways for other people to understand where you're coming from, and everyone works differently. So you might be very interested in that. All this says is, it's not saying don't teach just because he went on to teaching. It's just saying to make sure that you are doing what you love to do and not letting certain restrictions that are not really there, hold you back. Basically, don't make rules for yourself that hold you back or keep you in line, or keep you, within boundaries, if that makes sense. So keep making connections here where you can. Let's see. Again, these people come through, and it doesn't have, who's a friend in another life or a colleague can be even your, romantic partner in another life. It doesn't matter. It's just they're all part of your same soul group. So it does feel like the separation, even though it was like really hard to get through, it feels like these people will be coming in and out of your life. So if you haven't already like met that really good friend or a really great partner or whoever it is, that's what you're looking for, is someone who's on the same page as you and who speaks your language. And they're there. So it feels like these people are there. Yes. And also, last thing about this is if you find yourself getting into little depressive dips, it's just a reminder to make sure you're fueling your days with fun things as well, having things to anticipate, looking forward to the next day, scheduling things every week for you that uses your creativity and something new. So that's just all this is it's okay to have little depressive things, but don't get lost in the depression. Make sure you have things scheduled for you to come back and have fun with. So keep making connections to that where you can. And we're going to go to the death card. So here is the Burn Baby Burn card, which I've had recently, and I'm trying to see what's coming through for this. It feels like it's this can also be other things like smoking and other things like fire or heat related, but in this case it actually does feel like you're in a building and it feels like there is a fire and it feels like the smoke and gets you, which we had recently was the smoke out kind of thing. It's interesting. But it does feel like you are inside, and it feels like it's work related. So this would be coming up. I feel like a message to come through, not to let work kill you. Please don't overwork yourself or focus so much on work that you're letting go of having fun or building relationships or doing the things that are most important things in life to your heart and soul. So that's what it feels like, is that because this was at work, so work killed you, and that's just a message coming through. Don't let work kill you. And there's something else about, right. So if you either one can't stand smoking or it's like maybe you've tried smoking, it's really hard to breathe in, or on the other hand, you could have developed a smoking habit in this life, but usually when you die from inhalation, smoke, or fire, usually we find people eventually like avoiding it in the next time they come around. So if you have any issues when it comes to smoke or fire, fears of fire, things like that, even a fear of like there being a fire or gas being exposed in your home without any reason to feel the fear. So if you've had like a fear that you don't know why it's there, of the fire or the smoke or that kind of thing, breathing in the carbon dioxide, whatever it is, that would be a connection as well. And if not, that's perfectly fine, but make connections where you can with that as we go to the lesson. So the lesson here is simplicity, and it's really interesting because I feel like this life here, it was simple in the way of like, yes, you went to work and you provided for your family and that was kind of like your day-to-day thing, but you were working with really like complex subjects and complex like products and items, technology, things like that, and that it really highly intrigued you and it worked well for your mind. So the thing is how I feel like this is relating in your current life is it's not about ignoring the things that intrigue you, even if they're complex, and it's not saying anything like that. It's just saying to make sure that you are balancing things out. That's what the simplicity card feels like it's coming through in your current life, to make sure that you are balancing the things that intrigue you and the things you feel like you need to get done in life with also the things that are fun and relaxing. And just basically that's where the simplicity comes through, is make sure you're focusing on the things we consider to be very simple, whether it's a relationship with a loved one or a friend, or these things are simple relationships, your environment, where you find yourself going home to every day, that kind of thing. And to enjoy the simplicity of those things, but understand that the simplicity does not make them less important. Simplicity, in fact, in these instances, it's a little bit of a trick, because those are the most important things, are the things that you go home to every day, things you see every day. Some of the things you even might take taking for granted. Make sure you're not taking those things for granted, those things that are so simple, and make sure you're actually fully involving yourself in how beautiful the simplicity of things really are, okay? I feel like you're going to get a lot more from that. And it's also going to bring peace of mind when, let's say, you can't figure out the things that get your mind intrigued and going and puzzling and challenging. You might enjoy all that, but again, focus on what is simple, what is there, what is always there, the relationships, life, enjoying yourself, the small pleasures, those kinds of things. Just make sure you are at least paying some mind to them, because that's the kind of thing you would regret not paying mind to in the end. So anyway, there is your past life. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're able to make some connections, and thanks for letting me read you.